Megan Rapinoe's last World Cup, why USA soccer legend is still key if USWNT hope to win title three-peat. It is hard to be audacious on the bench. It is hard, for Megan Rapinoe, not to be audacious wherever she happens to be stationed. This is the fundamental contradiction of her circumstance with the United States women's national team as she prepares to participate or not in her fourth FIFA Women's World Cup. Just over the threshold to age 38, her birthday passing just 16 days before the USWNT's first match against Vietnam in Auckland, New Zealand, Rapinoe recognizes she no longer can start regularly for a team with genuine ambition to become the first to win a third consecutive World Cup. There's no need for her to admit this now, given she was presented the Golden Ball and later the Ballon d'Or after scoring a tournament-best 6 goals to lead the US victory at France 2019. But even then she was a step slower than ideal and was ably covered by elite left-back play from Crystal Dunn and by her own assortment of dazzling free kicks, corner kicks and penalty kicks as the USWNT conquered France, Germany and the Netherlands in succession in the most compelling Women's World Cup ever played. Time has come for Rapinoe, as it does for all the greatest athletes, from Babe Ruth to Babe Didrikson Zaharias. From Michael Jordan to Michael Phelps, from Chris Evert to Chris Paul. Rapinoe still is here, though, one of 23 named to the USWNT roster, gobbling a roster spot from someone with younger legs, more abundant energy. There must be a reason. First and foremost, the thing with Pinoe, when she's on the field, she's a great player, head coach Vlatko Andonovski told reporters at the team's June media day. That's the first reason why she's on this team. She's one of the most creative players that I've ever seen, and a true winner. But also, her experience and leadership is what this team needs as well. She will have a role as a leader and leading the leaders, as well. A few hours before the USWNT played their final friendly game before departing for New Zealand, Rapinoe sat in front of a microphone and made the announcement every athlete dreads: she is retiring, in her case at the end of the 2023 season for OL Reign, her team in the NWSL. She described herself as being wrapped in a deep sense of peace and gratitude and excitement, and her experience with the national team as the greatest thing that I've ever done. Entering the World Cup, she stands one short of 200 caps, with 63 goals and 73 assists on her record. She was an essential member of the 2012 Olympic gold medalists, as well as the World Cup winners in 2015 and 2019. She started 17 games in those 3 tournaments and delivered 11 goals and 4 assists. Not since 2011 has she come off the bench in a major tournament. She delivered the inch-perfect cross that Abby Wambach headed into the goal in the closing seconds of extra time against Brazil in the 2011 World Cup quarterfinals, forcing a penalty shootout the USWNT won. She scored the first 2 goals in the harrowing 4-3 semifinal victory over Canada at the 2012 Olympics. Rapinoe scored the first 2 goals of their successful 2015 World Cup campaign, essential in that they propelled the team to a 3-1 opening win over Australia that helped them escape a tough group. Even with her limited pace, she dominated with pure skill at the 2019 World Cup, scoring 5 of the team's 8 goals in the knockout stages. She's been an absolute icon. Former USWNT midfielder Heather O'Reilly of SiriusXM's Played-In program told The Sporting News, "I actually visualize her goal celebration pose. To me, she just really personifies braveness and authenticity and brashness that I feel like the team just needed at that point in time and that point of history. With certain things that were going on in the country, and certain things that were going on in the federation. Players like myself and Abby, we moved the needle, but not at a blip of Megan Rapinoe. She was just at another level of boldness. She goes down as one of the most influential players of all time, and I don't think her playing gets enough love. Her stats are good, her goals and assists numbers are quite good, especially into her 30s. She really doubled down on her professionalism as she got older, and that was really impressive to me. If you would have told me when we were 22-year-old kids that Pinoe would be still at it at 38, I would have said, no way. At least one analyst has criticized Rapinoe for making her retirement announcement in advance of the tournament, the issue being that it might draw unnecessary attention to her. Thing is, Rapinoe is going to be noticed, regardless. And not just because of her latest choice in hair color. She will be obvious because of her extensive work to achieve equal pay between the United States men's and women's senior national teams. A goal that was realized in a collective bargaining agreement completed last May that mandates the World Cup prize money earned by the USWNT and USWNT be pooled and split among the participating players. Rapinoe was among the many USWNT players who worked for a half-dozen years to get that deal done. She's meant so much to so many people, here in the US and around the world. US Soccer President Cindy Parlow-Cone told TSN. She is just so much more than just a great soccer player. Her impact on the field, for our women's national team, is obvious. But her impact off the field to so many people around the world might even mean more. I know from me, personally, she's pushed me to be a better person, a better leader, to think about things differently. She's also given me the courage to continue to be authentically myself, as I lead. That's really one thing I've taken away from her, is no matter what, Megan is truly authentic to herself and really fights for what she believes in. And what she believes is right. Parlow-Cone was not necessarily in an adversarial position as the USWNT and US Soccer worked through litigation and the collective bargaining process. They were not teammates in those discussions, though. Megan has been great to work with, Parlow-Cone said. Obviously, I'm a huge proponent of equal play, always have been. It was just a matter of figuring out how we got there. I had very difficult conversations with Megan, as well as some of the other players, in trying to figure out how we were going to get there. But throughout the process, Megan, as well as the other leadership on the team, were incredible partners. We didn't always agree on everything, we knew that would be the case, but we always came back to the table to figure out the path forward. Rapinoe will be impossible to miss as well, because of the lingering impact of her political positions, which reached their greatest amplitude during the 2019 World Cup, when it became public that she'd proclaimed in an earlier interview she would not visit the White House to celebrate if the team won the trophy. She later explained she did not want to offer a platform to an administration that does not feel the same way or fight for the same things that we fight for, and apologized only for using the F word as a modifier in her original declaration. Then President Trump tweeted that Rapinoe should win first before she talks. Finish the job. Legions of Trump supporters openly turned against the national team and rooted for France, England and the Netherlands in the remaining rounds. For some, that antipathy persists. Social media continues to be loaded, even on the day her final World Cup begins, with dismissals of her achievements and persona. Her chief antagonist no longer is in power, though. And the rapid growth of the women's game over the course of this young decade has underscored how vacant those harangues always have been. This one does feel different than other World Cups, Rapinoe said. Just in general, the sort of zoom-out picture around women's sports right now feels like we're out of the dogged fight phase, not that there's not a lot still to fight for, but the sort of acceptable cognitive dissonance and just denial of what we actually are. And how incredible women's sports are, how popular it is, how profitable we can be, what the business actually is, I think those days are pretty much long gone. It would be a tough and embarrassing position to still keep. I think this World Cup feels almost like a show up and show out kind of vibe. I think it's going to be incredible. It feels like a real opportunity kind of blow the lid off in terms of fanfare and media and sponsorships and the larger business around this sport. I think everyone is sort of hip to the game now and understands that this is not somewhere that, oh, we should cheer for the Women's World Cup because it's the right thing to do. This is actually a terrible business move if you're not getting in on it, if you're not investing, if you're not putting resources to it. And if you're not tuning in, you're missing out on a massive culture moment. This is not someone who's going to be ignored. David Moss of the Fox Sports State of the Union podcast explained in a recent episode that there is an axiom in sports that superstars don't make great role players. And yet this will be the third consecutive World Cup in which a certified legend of the sport, Wambach 2015, who retired with more international goals than any women's player in history. Carly Lloyd 2019, who scored the trophy-winning goals in 2 Olympics and a World Cup, and, now, Rapinoe. The first 2 worked out beautifully. Wambach scored only a single goal. But it was an important one to deliver a 1-0 victory over Nigeria and help the USWNT win their group. With a huge lead over Japan in the championship game, she got the opportunity to play the final 11 minutes of regulation and be acknowledged by the vast number of American fans at BC Place in Vancouver. 4 years ago, Lloyd scored 3 goals, tied for the third most among U.S. players, even though she started only once, and became a possession-chewing closer in the 4 consecutive 1-goal victories the team claimed in the knockout rounds. Rapinoe's approach obviously is different, though, from what Lloyd carried to France. Lloyd was driven by the belief she deserved to remain a USWNT starter, albeit at forward rather than the midfield spots she'd played earlier, and supported that contention with 5 goals and 2 assists in pre-cup friendlies. "I think my situation is way different," Lloyd, a Fox Sports studio analyst at this World Cup, told The Sporting News. At least I thought I was still at the top of my game. I was banging in goals. I was honing a different position the last 3 or 4 years of my career. I did not have injuries. I was probably fitter than a majority of the younger players. For me, not playing and having that substitution role was a personal decision on Jill Ellis. And there was not really much I could do. I could go on the field and bang in 6 goals, and she just personally didn't want to have me out there. But I was giving her every ounce of ammunition that I could still bring a lot to the team. I wasn't happy about that role. I was very vocal about that role. I knew that role wasn't because of my age. So very, very different scenarios. I think with Megan, you've kind of seen from 2019. She's kind of been battling some injuries here and there. I think that she knows her body potentially can't go like it's gone in the past. And so she's accepting that role and is part of another World Cup team. I don't know the pecking order of what games she's going to be needed in, or how and when she'll come off the bench. There is a lot of depth to the team. I think it's going to be dependent on a lot of different factors. Obviously, what Megan brings at the top of her game is very different and makes her special compared to so many other players. Rapinoe acknowledged in an offhand comment that she's probably not going to be the player Andonovski summons when the U.S. is protecting a 2-0 lead. Her lack of speed and ability to cover defensively might be detrimental in such a situation. And that concern was complicated by a calf injury that struck just before the national team assembled in late June. So it honestly might be best for the USWNT if Rapinoe is seen only in glimpses of their bench, never removing her substitute's bib except for, ideally, a ceremonial appearance at the end of the final that echoes what we saw with Wambach. Rapinoe might be a great player to have for her free kick ability late in a game when the US trails, but what American fan wants the team to be trailing? Megan Rapinoe is one of those players that you need to have there. She has to be on that roster, Fox Sports analyst Kendra D. St. Aubin told TSN. And as long as she is willing to take hold of that role, whatever it may be, whether it is minimized minutes, whether it is coming off the bench, we all know what she is capable of, those moments of brilliance. Whether it's services, whether it's finishes, whether it's cutting inside and being dangerous. I think if she has taken hold of that role and Vlatko has clearly communicated what that role looks like, I think she's going to be nothing but a benefit to this team. Thanks for your watching. Don't forget to click the subscribed button and hit the bell icon for more.